Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather Shepard, and I'm here to help you become more informed and empowered with regard to your health so you can support your health with the least amount of medical intervention possible. This week, I want to have a chat about bone health. We have a serious, to just put it out there, we have a serious bone epidemic going on. And this has to do with three main things. Of course, everything is always multifactorial. Of course, there's always genetic predisposition involved in all of our chronic disease states, which I'll talk about towards the end of this episode. But with regard to bone health, there are three main reasons why so many people are struggling today with this issue. Number one is a lack of bioavailable nutrients in the diet, such as calcium, vitamin D, vitamin A, magnesium, all of which real milk dairy products provide. When I say real milk, I mean milk that hasn't been destroyed by pasteurization and homogenization. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about the bioavailability of certain foods and nutrients and how you can improve those and increase those in your diet to support your bone health. And interestingly, cholesterol has a lot to do with the way your body produces new bone and supports bone health. And I'm going to deep dive into that today as well. Number two, factor that influences your bone health in not such a great way is exposure to non-native EMFs. Non-native meaning they're human-made. They're not provided by nature. These are EMF frequencies that are man-made, and what happens is this causes calcium homeostasis issues in the body, and this has a very strong impact on bone health. So I'm going to talk about that link with you all today. And number three, why we're struggling with poor bone health, with weak bones at a uh, earlier and earlier age, is lack of sunlight exposure. I'm going to mention sunlight here and there throughout this episode, but this is definitely a huge discussion, sunlight and bone health, and it's one that I'll be focusing on later in February, March. It's a big topic that deserves an in-depth conversation, but for now, what you need to know is that if you're not getting enough sunlight exposure, if you're living a predominantly indoor lifestyle, if you're looking at a screen much of the day, if the amount of hours you spend in front of a screen is more so than the amount of hours then you're outside in sunlight, we have an issue going on. And we have, if for those of you who have a genetic predisposition to bone struggles, to bone health issues, lack of sunlight exposure is going to fuel osteopenia and osteoporosis and so forth. During today's episode, I'm going to discuss how you can improve these areas, especially with regard to diet and EMF exposure. So you can improve these areas of your life, of your health, of your lifestyle, so you can have strong, healthy bones for life. Now, contrary to what we've been told, bone mass doesn't have to change all that much as we age. The story we're told around bone health is that as we age, particularly after women enter menopause and as testosterone levels start to drop, in men as they age, then bone health also diminishes. And right there, that should say that bone health issues have a hormonal component, right? Which I'll talk about because they very much do. But conventional theory spouts that once we reach age 40, bone mass starts to deteriorate. Okay, we don't have to go down, this black, negative, dark place. We can still support our bone health even as we age. We don't have to become osteoporotic and get weak bones just because we're getting older. Well, I'm 40, I'm turning 41 in just a couple of weeks now, and there's no way I'm on board with this theory. Nor does history show that massive losses in bone mass have to happen as we age. Thanks to the work of Weston A. Price, thanks to just observing what people looked like as they aged when they were, in generations who had yet to be exposed to modern disease, who had yet to be exposed to suppressive allopathic therapies, before people were exposed to screens and non-native EMF. They looked robust. Their anatomy, their bone structure, it was on point. So just by observing history, we can see that this doesn't have to be the case. And we can see through the research, especially of Weston A. Price, that this absolutely doesn't have to be the case. And, um, what I'm going to talk to you all about today and discuss with you all about today is how to support your bone health, thereby preventing the bone deterioration and bone diseases that allopathy and really many wakes of medicine are just like, oh yeah, that's just what happens as you age. No, it doesn't have to happen as you age. And let's clear the air around one other thing here. More and more young adults are being diagnosed with osteopenia. Okay, I'm talking about 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, right? Osteopenia is a decrease in bone mineral density. It's the step before osteoporosis, right? But the bone mineral density isn't low enough yet to be considered osteoporosis. So, what are they saying? Oh, why are young adults now being diagnosed with osteopenia and being put on drugs, medications for osteoporosis, which these medications are insanely dangerous. The side effects are ridiculous, and there's so much more you can do for your bone health than pop one of those. In fact, doing that is going to make the situation much worse in my experience and opinion. But here's what they say. This is why they say, oh, anybody of any age, this is why they get osteopenia or osteoporosis. Smoking, excess alcohol intake, and anti-seizure medications. These are what are blamed for increasing rates of osteopenia in young adults as well as adults as well. And certainly we have to take these causative factors into account if a young adult or anyone with osteopenia or osteoporosis is engaged in these lifestyle practices. If they're a chain smoker or if they're on medication for epilepsy, then yeah, then this is going to contribute. However, as always, the story goes much deeper than this, right? And we have to discuss, we have to talk about, we have to bring into light here what is really fueling bone issues at not, in all ages, at young people and older people. What is fueling this issue? Okay. And there are several things which I'm going to talk about today. Constant and incessant exposure to non-native EMF. Bone issues are going to continue to be on the rise because, our exposure to these frequencies increases every day. There's something new every day that you can get to be more like smart, meter friendly, and you can get your refrigerator and oven, and it's so much crap out there today, right? So this isn't going away anytime soon, unless Pluto and Aquarius blows things up with regard to technology. Beware. But so we have non-native EMF exposure, high carb diets, lots of carbs, lots of sugar in the diet, whether they're whole grain or processed, this is not going to do your bone health any good. And add to that lack of sunlight exposure, and you have the perfect storm here for developing osteopenia and osteoporosis. So despite what age you are, supporting your bone health it's a solid idea. Your bone health is a reflection of your metabolic health. It's a reflection of your hormone health. It's a gauge as to how at risk you will be of experiencing a fracture or a break. It will determine your rate of recovery from these falls and accidents. And it's also a reflection of how well you're absorbing nutrients in your gut. Bone diseases are gut diseases, okay? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today as well. Because ultimately I want you to feel more empowered. I want you to feel more support. I want you to feel like there are things you can do, because there are, to support your bone health, your skeletal structure, that keeps you upright and mobile and strong and so forth. Now, before I get into the specifics about bone health, I want to announce that registration for my ancestral health certification course is open again. I'm so excited about that, and it will remain open until Friday, February 23rd, 2024. Okay, so you have a little time to sign up. This is a course that it's a pre-recorded course, actually, so you can go at your own pace and watch the modules as your schedule permits. The essence of this course teaches you everything I know about diet and sunlight, so you can create customized healing plans for your clients using a combination of these two therapies. Now, this course teaches you how to address specific health conditions such as osteoporosis, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome, cancer, to name a few. There are live case studies, and so the goal of this course is so that you can become a certified ancestral health practitioner, so you can help people overcome these disorders, chronic diseases, so you can help support their healing in these areas by creating customized sunlight and diet healing plans. You can learn more about the course and certification process over at my site, heatharshepard.com, and go to the Ancestral Health Certification tab. Okay. If you go through it, you're like, boom, I'm in, I want to do this. You go down, you're like, wait, I need a different payment plan than what's outlined on the course. Great. Send me an email and we can have a chat about how to set that up. I am very open to that. We need more informed healthcare practitioners out there, and I will do whatever I can to make it happen, to get you there if it's something you're passionate about. All right, let's get on with bone health. So, osteoporosis and other bone diseases like osteopenia are both related to metabolic and hormone insufficiencies. Okay, let's pause right here, right? So, we need to approach this in a different way than what conventional theory has, taught us to approach this from. The lens that they're approaching this from, osteoporosis and bone diseases from, is narrow. It's myopic. It's ineffective. Let's just be real, right? So because this is a metabolic and hormone disorder, we, at least in part, and in large part, have to focus on these areas of health in order to support our bones. What is a population that is at high risk of osteoporosis? Well, there are several, but we have people who have been bulimic, anorexic. Those are at high risk. They totally destroy their metabolism. They totally destroy their hormones with those conditions, okay? So we have to know, we have to ask our clients when we're working with them, or we have to ask ourselves, is that part of our history? Is that part of our medical history? Oh, yeah, it is. Well, then that is one of the root causes here. This is how, the hormones and metabolism got, destroyed in the first place. Everybody's story is going to be different. And to really help someone, we have to understand, okay, what is their story? And how did they get here? How did they end up in this situation, right? What's another population who's at a high risk for developing bone issues? Marathon runners and triathletes, people who are engaged in these marathon-like aerobic, intense, several miles a day of swimming, running, biking. These individuals are at high risk of developing bone issues as well. Who else is at risk for this? Well, x-ray technicians, people who work in radiology departments. You know, these professions are going to be at higher risk because of the impact of radiation on bone health, which I'll talk about more, you know, here in a little bit. There are other populations as well, but those are some of the main populations who are at a high risk for bone health issues. Okay, so metabolic health, hormone health, we have to focus on, okay, how do we reestablish these things? Well, I teach people how to do it with certain meal timing practices, with seasonal eating practices, with specific nutrients in the diet, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But, you know, this is not the story we've been told around our bones and bone diseases. Oh, we're just not getting enough calcium, which is probably true. We're not getting enough. To make that more clear, we're not getting enough bioavailable calcium in the diet. Sure, that's probably accurate. We're probably not. But, you know, we're not really being told, why does this happen in the first place? Oh, you're just not getting enough calcium in your diet, right? And it probably, the story kind of stops there usually. So um, compromised bone health, weak bone health protocols never focus on reestablishing metabolic health or hormone health. And this has to be on the center. If somebody comes to me and they have these issues, we are focusing on metabolic and hormone health and how to reestablish that. Okay, this is the essence of our bones, what fuels them. Now, what else fuels them? This is important. This is something that's not often talked about as well. And we need to have a chat about steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are one of the main molecules that influence bone cell activity. So, guess what? If your hormones are insufficient, if you have a genetic predisposition to bone health issues, that's where it's going to show up, right? So if you really want an easy gauge for your bone health, forget the bone density scans that um, they want you to get. Like, really? And okay, so then I get a scan, and then what? And then what happens? Then how are you going to help me? Then where are we going with this, right? We're going on medication after that. Oh yeah, you're in the dangerous range, or your bone health is still diminishing, right? It's like, that is not the answer. And these tests, bone density scans, expose you to high levels of radiation, one of the very things that drives bone density issues in the first place. Forget it. If my mom was like, um, you know, I'm concerned about my bone health and osteoporosis, should I get a bone scan? Absolutely not. You're not allowed to do that. It's not permitted. No, we're not going to do that. There are other more proactive things that we can do that actually improve the level of your health versus compromising it through something like a bone density scan. Now, an easier, much less invasive, less harmful way to test bone health, or I should say, to get an assessment as to what's going on with your bones, is, it's going to sound counterintuitive, but it's by running a cholesterol panel. Okay, this may seem counterintuitive to bone health, but remember, your hormone status is going to have a major influence on your bone health. And we all make steroid hormones from what? From LDL cholesterol. The dude we've been told is the villain. Turns out LDL cholesterol isn't bad after all. I'm going to talk about when it can go south, but for the most part, we've only been told one side of the story, and we haven't even been told that side accurately. Most people are concerned. I'm going to talk about LDL cholesterol here for a bit because it's really important when it comes to understanding bone health. It's really important to understand actual benefits of LDL cholesterol. Why might we need this in a higher range, right? And so let's start off here. Let's start off here by talking about why we don't need to be concerned with low LDL and lowering our LDL cholesterol. There is pretty much zero cases where we would want to lower LDL cholesterol. And again, I'm going to talk about, red flags that we need to pay attention to in this area in just a minute. But just want to remind you that everything the system tells you to do, you almost always want to do the opposite to support your livelihood, to support your well-being, to support your health. Throwing that out there. Now, to this day, of over 15, is probably more like 18, I've lost count, of observing LDL levels in my clients. I have yet to see a progressed case of osteoporosis that doesn't simultaneously have a low LDL cholesterol reading. Now, remember, we all make steroid hormones from LDL cholesterol, and a low LDL is at the heart. It's one symptom. This is a symptom of osteoporosis. So if your doctor is pushing a statin and making you feel concerned with a high LDL, you can remind them that LDL is needed to make steroid hormones, which are needed to lay new bone, which are needed for my bone health, which are needed for cellular health. Now, conventional science, funded by the industry, of course, right, will also, they're going to put worms in your head as they've manipulated studies in this area, reversing this wisdom and what I'm sharing with you here today, blaming a high LDL on bone health issues. It makes no sense when we go back and examine the physiology of what actually happens in the body before jumping on the science bandwagon. Okay, not all of it's bad, but most of it's a total crapshoot. Make sure you understand the physiology behind it. Don't just say, oh, this study by Harvard says LDL cholesterol high levels increase risk of osteoporosis. Oh, really? Who funded that study? Okay, what environment was that study performed in? So, etc., etc. They assume you know nothing about the physiology of the body, the workings of the body, and so they can literally say whatever they want you to believe because they know you're going to credit it and that it's backed by science. Most of science is based on flat out lies and to make the industry more money, to push pharmaceuticals and so forth. And that's exactly what's going on here with osteoporosis and statins, because they want you to stay under their thumb. I want you to get out under their thumb. Now, the real reason why they're linking high LDL to osteoporosis has to do with statin drugs. Woo! Who knew blaming a high LDL on osteoporosis gives them a new avenue with statins, gives them a new market. Not only can we now give this for high cholesterol, which they continue every several years to lower the bar. No, it's now 200 is a high cholesterol. Now, the next year 175 is high. The next year 150 is too high. Few more years, 100, that's getting high, right? They continue to do this. And so like that's a red flag right there, that they continue to move that bar. However, so let's just talk about this for a second. No one should ever be on a statin, just if nobody who's really concerned about living a life of health and wholeness and optimal health really shouldn't even consider being on a statin drug. No exceptions. Statin drugs put the brakes on LDL production. And if you cannot produce LDL, if you cannot make enough LDL, you're in serious trouble. Your health is in serious trouble. Your health is what makes you who you are your hormones. This is why I have such this is why I am not in favor of any type of gender transition because of its impact on the hormones. It is going to completely change, transform the essence of who you were born and put here to be. And that's going to cause serious health issues. Statin drugs are going to do a very similar thing. It just looks differently. It's just, it puts the brakes on LDL production. And if you cannot produce LDL, you're in serious trouble. I'm going to say more about that in a minute. But before I do so, I want to mention the core side effects of statins. Debilitating back pain, meaning you cannot move or get out of bed. Type 2 diabetes across the board. That is one of the most well-known side effects of statin drugs. And who do they prescribe statin drugs to? People who are obese, people who have heart health issues. Let's get them on a statin, which is just going to further fuel the disease and put somebody straight into type 2 diabetes, beeline. It causes extreme muscle pain, like muscle pain from hell, and it also causes kidney and liver damage, to just name literally a few. So what's considered a low LDL from a quantum health perspective, which is how I practice medicine? It's anything below 200 mgs per DL. These are US units, so please convert that if you live overseas. Anything below that, and the risk of osteoporosis, the risk of cancer, and the risk of immune system issues go up exponentially. The lower one's LDL, the more at risk one becomes for these issues. One of my goals with my clients is to get their LDL levels to a healthy, robust place so their body can make hormones. This is the key to life and longevity, healthy hormones. So why do we want to support, LDL levels, right? Your doctor is never going to tell you the positive supportive connection between LDL, cholesterol, hormone health, and mitochondrial health. They may not even know it, right? Mitochondrial health, just very briefly, this is how your cells, how your body produces energy, okay? This is one of the main goals of the body. You cannot make energy, you're going to be 6 feet under, right? So this is really important. LDL is involved in this process. Higher LDL cholesterol levels stabilize the mitochondria, strengthen the mitochondria, making it more robust and better equips the cell to handle stress, job stress, relationship stress, environmental stress, all types of stress. So an elevated LDL, elevated quote unquote, actually helps the mitochondria to maintain its charge, its electrical charge, so your body can continue to function optimally, produce energy, and handle stress more efficiently, effectively. When the electrical charge in your cells go down, like when the LDL is too low, this is when issues like osteoporosis set in. So, if you want some real unbiased science with regard to bone health, check out the work of Robert O. Becker. And this guy is, he's legit. He did some really good work in this area and discovered that bone produces and responds to electrical currents. Anybody who I work with who has bone issues, we have to we have to expose the organism to electrical currents produced by nature. This is why grounding and sunlight are so, one reason why they're so essential and helpful for reestablishing bone health, and why things like non-native EMF absolutely destroy it. Now, before I go into how non-native EMF impacts bone health, I want to briefly discuss why cholesterol when cholesterol can be an issue. Okay, Heather, you're like, yeah, I eat cholesterol, no problem, but let's look at both sides of the coin because, it can go south. Sure, it can go south. It's not going to go south from eating too much grass-fed meat or beef tallow or, organic lard or fatty fish, etc. No, that's not how it's going to go south. Um, but it can go south. The cholesterol story can go south if cholesterol oxidizes or if you eat oxidized fats, rancid fats. This is why vegetable oils are a really bad idea. They're oxidized rancid fats. This is also why I don't like avocado oil. Everyone's like, yes, avocado oil. Our ancient ancestors didn't eat avocado oil. They ate stable, solid fats. Okay. So anyway, I have a whole podcast episode on avocado oil. It's a ways back there, but if you want to deep dive into that, go for it. But if cholesterol, so I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about some dietary issues and sources that contribute to oxidized cholesterol in the body, in the arteries, and I'm also going to talk about oxidized cholesterol, how that can happen inside your body. So let me explain here a little bit to make it more clear. So if cholesterol isn't used up by the body in an efficient, timely manner, it can oxidize and become no longer LDL cholesterol. It then it changes size. The particle size changes. I know many of you are aware of this, but I want to help you get clear. If you go get an LDL cholesterol reading, that says nothing about if your cholesterol is oxidized or not. So, if you're really concerned, test for small dense SD-LDL, small dense LDL cholesterol levels. We have to get more specific, okay? So if cholesterol isn't being used by the body fast enough, it can oxidize, it can become rancid, it can change sizes. Instead of light and fluffy, it's small, it's dense, it gets stuck in the arteries, it causes issues in the body. This is the type of cholesterol that can be harmful to your arteries, to your brain, and other aspects of your health, to your heart. How can you tell if your cholesterol is oxidizing or not? Well, you can test. Sure, go ahead. You can test your SD-LDL levels. I don't know if this is always accurate, but if you're really concerned, it's worth a shot, I think. And then there are some other things you can do with regard to your lifestyle to help mobilize and utilize your cholesterol stores. For one, if you're a woman, we have the ability to create a life inside of our body, whether you choose to do so or not. Your cholesterol is going to be used up more typically, unless the hormones are fucked, just for this reason. So that puts you at less of a risk. And we know that males usually are at a greater risk of heart disease than women. This is one reason why. But let's check your lifestyle. So are you engaging in things that fuel this fire, that fuel this oxidation of LDL? What are some examples of that? A sedentary lifestyle, sitting, not moving. This right here will contribute to this issue. Processed and packaged foods, vegetable oils. I don't care if the label says paleo or not. We have to understand that animal fats take much longer to go rancid, have a much longer shelf life because they contain vitamins A, D, and hopefully K2. So this prevents them from oxidizing. It keeps them more shelf stable. Vegetable oils and plant oils are very susceptible to oxidation from light, from heat, by traveling, by just in the way they're processed and pressed. So we have to eliminate those from your diet. Dry and powdered milk. I went into our butcher shop here the other day, and man, they had the best salami. Amazing, so good. I went in to get it. The packaging had changed, so I turned over, I read the label, and they freaking add dried milk, powdered milk to the product. And I'm like, the dude's like, I was like, hey, do you have that salami you guys always carry? And he's like, yeah, we just changed the packaging, is all. And I turned it over and I looked at it. I was like, you changed the ingredients also. I can't eat powdered milk. And he's like, oh, whoa, I had no idea. Like, right? Like, dude. So, just for I'm mentioning this because a lot of you out there, I know you're in the paleo food world and the ancestral food world. Read the label on your liver pates, on your salamis, on your cured meats. If they add dried milk or milk powder, freaking forget it. This stuff is will oxidize cholesterol, and the cholesterol in the dry and powdered milk is already oxidized, so it's a double negative. Protein shakes, same issue. Don't eat protein shakes. They isolate protein, they heat it up to really hot temperature, it destroys the proteins, and it can contribute to oxidized cholesterol buildup. Homogenization of milk. Dude, this is a big source. I talked about this extensively in last week's episode, but you can check it out to learn more about the health benefits of dairy and raw milk and how to make healthy choices when it comes to dairy. So there's so many choices out there with regard to dairy, so much processing involved. Homogenization of milk applies heaps of pressure to the milk in an effort to break up the fat molecules, so the cream doesn't rise to the top. Let's integrate everything. Let's integrate all of the dead bacteria that pasteurization created. So homogenization does that. And by doing so, by applying such pressure to the milk and the fats in the milk, what happens is, sure, the cream doesn't rise to the top anymore, and they've convinced people that this is like a good thing, right? Like, hey, that what a win, what a coup for society. However, this processing method actually denatures the butter fat and makes the fat and cholesterol in these products go rancid much more rapidly, which basically then you're drinking oxidized rancid fats when you consume homogenized milk. And this is going to there you go. You've just created a source of oxidized cholesterol in your body. So I would definitely avoid homogenized anything, including homogenized milk, for this reason. A lack of exercise, as I mentioned, can increase risk of oxidized cholesterol. Movement mobilizes LDL, but again, there's that fine line. We don't want to do the marathon thing or CrossFit our body to death, or triathlete our body to death. That's overdoing it. That's too much stress applied to the body. Go for a hike, do some resistance training, which can be amazing for osteoporosis in a healthy, balanced way. Then we have sunlight, right? Are you getting enough sunlight exposure on your skin? That's a question. I want you to think about that, because your skin is lined with cholesterol sulfate. And when cholesterol hits your skin, it mobilizes and utilizes and puts to use cholesterol to make every single steroid hormone in your body, to produce cancer protective molecules like luminesterol. These are a few ways you can prevent LDL oxidation. Okay. I might have given you a little bit more than you bargained for there with bone health and LDL cholesterol, but it's important, it's overlooked, it's not discussed, and it plays a huge role with regard to our bone health. Okay, let's talk about the effects of non-native EMF on bone health, and then I'm going to end the show by discussing diet and bone health as well. So this area of bone health um, correlating to EMF exposure has yet to be taken seriously. Big shocker, but honestly, it needs to be taken seriously. Why? Because excessive exposure to non-native EMF, Wi-Fi, cell phones, living near a cell tower or cell towers, Bluetooth everything, wireless everything, Alexa, what's the weather today, right? We need to consider also things like X-ray radiation, the excessive radiation exposure that pilots and flight attendants and dental hygienists are exposed to. All of these forms of radiation increase risk of bone weakness, bone density issues. And when it comes to specifically wireless technology, excessive exposure actually changes calcium homeostasis. It pulls calcium from the cell, causing something called calcium efflux. Calcium efflux occurs due to an alteration of electrical current. Each one of your cells are operating at a specific pulse. They're putting out a specific electrical current. And this is determined by the amount of water that surrounds the cell, which is determined by the amount of minerals that surround your cell. Calcium is a mineral. So when you're exposed to non-native EMF frequencies on a regular basis, which most people are, okay, we're going to have major issues here in our youth with bone health issues. The other day I was talking to my nephew and he's like, what do you but Shangazi is means ant in Swahili. So he's like, Shangazi, what if something, bad happens, or I need to call you, or what if I'm sick and I need to talk to you, and your Wi-Fi is off, or I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. I don't have Wi-Fi. Didn't understand that, right? We had to have that chat. I was like, okay, yo, his name's Johans. Yo, you can call me on my landline. He's like, he had no idea, right? No idea what a landline. So I like held the phone up to him and I was like, hey, yo, this, this is a landline, right? I was showing him the phone and he just started laughing. He's like, oh my God, what is that thing? Right? We have to bring back the landline. I wonder if that's not a hashtag, it should be. We have to bring the landline back. Because, going back to calcium efflux, just being exposed to Wi-Fi, being exposed to your cell phone, these sort of EMFs, they alter the electrical charge in the cell. They cause calcium efflux. They cause calcium to leach out from the cell. And so what happens is the electrical charge in the cell changes, and then um, uh, energy production fails. The calcium doesn't go to where it needs to go to help support health, like the bones. When this happens, it also causes a host of other issues. It's like this domino effect. Magnesium levels become imbalanced, and people who experience things like tremors, leg cramps, muscle spasms. And they're like, I need to take a magnesium supplement, which will alter. You put one mineral in your body, it alters all of the other minerals in your body. They work synergistically together. We can't just dump a bunch of minerals into our body and be like, oh yeah, we're crushing it. That's not how it works. We have to get to the root of why you're having these issues. This is one reason I love homeopathy so much, because one, homeopathic remedies focus on, we have animal remedies, we have like snake venom. I know it sounds like witchcraft. We have plant remedies, we have mineral remedies. And so if there's an imbalance in the body, by understanding somebody's symptoms, you can understand which mineral is out of balance. You can give them a homeopathic remedy that focuses on, let's say, calcium is out of balance, in a very minute dose, not in this huge powdered dose that just dumps day after day after day this into the body. You give the lowest dose possible, and the whole body starts to change over time because that mineral starts to come back into balance. It's fascinating. So, but when this happens, when calcium efflux happens, it causes a host of issues. Magnesium becomes imbalanced, and the bones become compromised because now calcium isn't getting transported to where it needs to be. Dehydration inside the cell starts to happen. You know, this is the things I mentioned, like leg cramps, low energy, muscle tremors, twitches, and the amount of ATP energy that's produced reduces. There's not as much, the energy production goes down inside the cell when, just by being exposed to non-native EMF, all of this shit happens. Now, this is a huge reason why I chose to completely get rid of Wi-Fi, and I honestly never ever use my cell phone. Half the time I don't even know where it is. It's never on. I never use it. I never make a call, and I don't even get service at my house. But you know, my wife and I chose to completely get rid of Wi-Fi for health reasons, to support our health. I Before we moved out to our farm, I would every day, I would have muscle twitches that would just be like, it'd be like this like boom pulse through my body. I was like, God dang, what, you know, what? And then we think something's wrong and our heart palpitates and we're like, oh my God, I'm dying. No, there's too many EMFs that you're being exposed to. As soon as we came to the farm, literally to this day, we've been here over a year, I haven't had a muscle twitch. I have not had one muscle twitch. So if you're eating the best diet on the planet, but you're still surrounded by Wi-Fi and excessive EMFs, your health is not going to improve. It's not. It's like you'll be treading water. It's like dun, 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 but you're not going anywhere. And then you're going to get frustrated. You're going to think what you're doing isn't working. You're going to think, you know, you're incurable. You know, and when it comes to bone health, how non-native EMF influences calcium and mineral levels in the body, we need to absolutely take this seriously when it comes to safeguarding our hormones, our bone health, our overall health, you know. And this is a main reason why I deep dive into sunlight, especially UV light, because it restores hydration status in the cell. Your cells are surrounded by something called easy water, okay? It's a whole bunch of minerals there. And if those minerals get depleted, and non-native EMF exposure is a huge way they get depleted, then that water is going to shrink and you're going to start to have symptoms, chronic fatigue, energy issues, insomnia, etc. The list is a laundry list. But UV light restores hydration status in the cell. It improves ATP energy production in the cell. It decreases inflammation in the cell, and it improves glucose metabolism in the cell, to name a few things. So, new year, new you. Swap your Wi-Fi for Ethernet and commit to the Sunlight RX like you've never done before. Honestly, I promise you it will be a game changer, and you can get a copy of the Sunlight RX on my website. There's a link for it on the menu tab. Let's end today by talking about diet and bone health. Now, let me review the conventional theory as well as most of the holistic theory with regard to bone health. I want to make sure you don't make these mistakes. They are common suggestions that make sense on paper, but not in your body. Now, both, you know, conventional and holistic theory provides similar recommendations actually around how to strengthen your bone health. You know, the only difference is that conventional is going to push some sort of RX on you, which You can make your own decision, but I would personally decline and take a hard pass. So, what are these recommendations? Take a calcium supplement, take a vitamin D supplement, take a magnesium supplement, and start a resistance training program. Now, the latter will actually probably be beneficial, as well as uh, the minute, no, don't take any of those supplements. Just forget it. No, no, no. Your body cannot use those. You can, those are not bioavailable sources. I don't care if it comes from dinosaur bone, beef head, whatever. I don't know. Your body is not going to be able to utilize those minerals in a supplement form. Now, the latter, resistance training, yes, this will be beneficial. It's very beneficial to bone health. We don't move anymore. We don't lift things. We don't pick things up. We don't chop wood. We don't carry water. We don't do these things. So we need to use our muscles more. Yes, we have atrophied our bones and our muscles because we don't move or lift things or do heavy work. This is peasantry stuff. No, it's not. It's not. So, but please, I'm going to advise you, find a qualified trainer for the love of sweet baby Jesus. Um, there are so, I was a personal trainer. I trained professional athletes, NBA, MLB, all of them, for several years before I had my TBI. And very thankfully was learned how to do this in a very good optimal way. There are people, there are you don't need to really have any type of qualifications to be a personal trainer, which whatever, I don't care about that. But please seek somebody out who knows what they're doing, who if you're I don't know if I should do a podcast on this of how to tell if a personal trainer knows what they're doing. Um, you can tell, I hope, but I mean it can be a little bit complex. Get a recommendation for someone and make sure they know what they're doing, and they are all about injury prevention as well as resistance training, and they're not about lifting more weights, but they focus on your form, and then they gradually increase your the weight that you're lifting and so forth. They focus on your posture. They don't just do back and buys and squats and hamstrings. It's like or they're not just crossfitting you to death and teaching you how to do a power lift, without laying any foundation of how to get to that point in the first place. Anyway, I can go off on that. I'm not going to anymore. Find a qualified trainer. Boom, that's it. Now, one thing is crystal clear about diet and bone health. A high carb diet, a diet with lots of sugar, I would even say a diet with moderate amounts of these things, is a beeline to osteoporosis. For anybody with a genetic predisposition to poor bone health, those things will get you there. They'll get you there quite nicely. Sugar and carbs do not feed bones, they hollow and weaken bones. High animal protein diets, they've proven time and time again throughout history. Look at Weston A. Price's research to support healthy, robust bone structure throughout life. These people, if you have the book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price, the before of modern foods picture and after is astounding. Now, we also have to consider not only diet. Weston A. Price didn't go here, but I'm going there because it's obvious. These people were outside in sunlight all day long, moving things, doing things, hunting, cooking, carrying babies, carrying water, right? They were outside in sunlight, and they didn't have any exposure to screens, EMFs, non-native EMF, etc. Okay, we have to also consider this. So now it is, I'm just going to say, let's focus on this for a minute. The high animal protein diet, it's absolutely hogwash that animal protein causes, poor health or compromised kidney function. I tell all of my students in my ancestral health course certification program that the only time you should ever or need to ever recommend a lower amount of animal protein to your clients is when they have an existing, they come to you and they have this. This is already in store, already in place, showing up, an existing form of kidney disease, or they're on dialysis. That's it. Other than that, it's utter nonsense that we should eat more plants and less meat, or eat less meat in general. If you want healthy bones, eat more meat, eat more raw and cultured dairy products from cows raised on grass, and make homemade bone broth. Boom. Combine this with the Sunlight RX and your bones will be much stronger and much more robust. Get rid of Wi-Fi and now you're like, you're on the road to recovery, big time. Okay, something I want to emphasize is the bioavailability of nutrients in food. If the foods are not bioavailable, no matter what the label says, your gut will not absorb your food, and therefore the nutrients that are supposed to be in that food, your body actually won't put it to use. I want to give you an example here. So say you have Simple Mills gluten-free crackers. The back of the label may list, I don't know, iron or magnesium or potassium levels and so forth that are supposed to be in the cracker. However, these forms of the mineral are not bioavailable. Anything with a high level of anti-nutrients, like oxalates, like phytic acid, nuts, seeds, grains, they need to undergo a cooking process, a fermentation process, a soaking, a salting, a souring, a dehydration process in order to antidote its anti-nutrients. If it doesn't, if we don't take these steps, the nutrients in those foods will actually not be absorbed in your body. And not only that, they're going to cause malabsorption issues in your gut. Leaky gut, this is a whole other topic in itself, is another driving cause of osteoporosis because minerals and nutrients are not being absorbed and put to use. They're leaking into the bloodstream. They're going out via the stool and diarrhea, etc. So, plant foods typically contain far less bioavailable nutrients than animal foods. Bioavailable simply means your body puts those nutrients that you're eating to great use, absorbs, assimilates, utilizes them, and the conversion rate of the nutrients in that food is much higher in animal foods than they are in plant foods. Now, I want to give you an example that is really interesting. And Diane Rogers over at Sustainable Dish, I think her handle's at Sustainable Dish, provides some amazing information on this topic. Well researched, really, really good job. She's a good researcher, and does a really good job with regard to talking about bioavailability of nutrients in animal foods versus plant foods. Totally demolishes the blind beliefs around and the bad science around cows causing global warming, etc. But I want to give you an example here because this is really interesting, and there's a good diagram somewhere on her her handle that talks about this. But I'm going to give you an example of protein, the bioavailability of protein in beef versus broccoli. So beef contains about 6.4 grams of protein per 100 calories, whereas broccoli contains 11.1 grams of protein per 100 calories. Whoa! On paper, broccoli's the winner. It's the far better source of protein. Let's dive deeper. 100 calories of beef is 2 ounces. 2 ounces is like, a $50. It's tiny. Okay, it's an incredibly small amount. When I eat a steak, it's about 17 ounces. Yeah, okay. When you eat a steak, it should be about 17 ounces. Okay, now 100 calories of broccoli is equivalent to 2 cups of broccoli. So that's far more food going in than 2 ounces of the steak. Now, so what is this saying? You're going to have to eat a lot more broccoli to get your protein requirements than beef. But let's not just stop there, because the vegans will be like, oh, cool, I'll just eat 2 cups of broccoli. Hold the phone. The nutrients in broccoli are nowhere near as bioavailable as in the steak or as in the dairy product, etc. So, beef, for example, the protein in there is far easier for the gut to assimilate, absorb, digest, contains all of the essential amino acids, and contains bioavailable nutrients and minerals like iron. Whereas broccoli is not a complete protein, doesn't contain all of the amino acids, is much harder to digest. The gut has to work really hard. If you have thyroid issues, digesting cruciferous vegetables is going to be a chore. It's going to be a lot harder. And the broccoli is 90% water. So you don't even have this full Monty of nutrients in that food to begin with. So, you may read a meme that's like, oh, well, oh my God, it's such a good meme. I pulled one up today. It's like a picture of broccoli, and the picture says, you need calcium, not milk. And it's like, somebody will read that who is not informed about bioavailability of nutrients and how there's far superior in animal products versus plant foods, and think, well, shit, I can go vegan and get my calcium needs met. Oh, yeah, I'm saving the planet. Oh, no, you're not. And you're harming your bones and you're harming your health. And the bioavailability of calcium in broccoli is poor. It's like, if it were to go to school and get a grade, it would fail. Now, swap that with cultured dairy or raw milk, and it's like, it's not even fair to compare it. So when it comes to nutrition and nutrients that support bone health, okay, think bioavailable forms of protein, of calcium, of magnesium, of phosphorus. Phosphorus is the second most abundant mineral in the body, and it plays a huge role in bone health. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body. Now, vitamin A and vitamin D, they need to come from animal fats. Butter, tallow, lard. Without these vitamins, without these two nutrients, calcium cannot be transported throughout the body, and therefore it's never going to make it to your bones. So let's say you're a vegan and you just crush it with the broccoli, and you put like, what would you just steam it? Maybe you put some kind of vegetable oil on it. And what's that calcium going to do? It's going to do nothing. It's going to do no good. It's going to cause calcifications in your body because you can't utilize it. There's no fats there to help put it to use. There's no bus to transport it and drop it off to where it's supposed to go. So, these are two nutrients that need to be strong in the diet as well to support your bone health. Vitamin A, vitamin D, think animal fat, think wild caught seafood. K2, vitamin K2 is not the same as vitamin K. Both are important for bone health, but K2 also helps transport calcium and is found in foods like egg yolks, liver pate, butter, raw dairy, cultured dairy. So these are important nutrients to have in the diet when it comes to supporting your bones. Just a reminder, what nutrients are not bioavailable? Plant protein, soy, nuts and seeds. They're going to have a little bit more if they're properly prepared. They can have some bioavailability, but nowhere near what animal protein is going to provide you with. Pea protein, stop. Stop with the pea protein shakes. Don't do it. It's a trap. It's a beeline to leaky gut. It's a beeline to osteoporosis. Forget it. Lastly, it's important to remember that genetic predisposition plays a role in all chronic diseases, including osteoporosis, and that environmental stressors can activate our genetic predispositions, increasing the momentum, the rate at which we move toward chronic disease. What are examples of those stressors? Suppressive therapies, you know, I talk about them ad nauseum on this show because they're so crucial. It's like they crush our health, and not a good crush way, in a bad crush way. You know, the anti-BOs, the jabs, the prednisones, the all the RXs. So we have this exposure to these things will increase over time, will increase the momentum towards your activating the genetic predisposition in deeper and deeper ways, taking you to, oh, I can't gain weight, I'm underweight, I have osteopenia, I have osteoporosis. It will lead you down the road towards that progressive state. And then we have mental emotional stressors like grief that's impactful, that's really challenging, that someone has a difficulty overcoming, suppressed anger, PTSD, trauma. This is where homeopathy really comes in and hits home and is able to touch upon these areas. As you see, there's a lot to discuss with regard to bone health, and I hope this episode helps you start thinking about the health of your bones in deeper ways and ways that support root causes, overcoming root causes of your bone health issues, and ways that help you feel more empowered about your health. Remember, the information shared in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease and isn't intended as medical advice. We'll see you next week.